Cardboard Rectangles. We are here today to discuss local gaming stores, their role in Magic history, and their role in Magic's future. This is actually spawned by, I got a gift card right here. We'll talk about this later on in the video, but that's the reason that we are having this discussion today. Because LGSs have been sort of fading away, and I think there are a number of factors that are contributing to this, and if you want to save your LGS, we need to have like real talk about what's going on and what your chances are in terms of saving the LGS, what it's going to take, that sort of thing. So local gaming stores have been a part of Magic the Gathering since the very, very beginning. In fact, that's how the majority of players back in the day would have been introduced to Magic the Gathering. There are things like Arena now, which are much easier access points to Magic the Gathering, and there have been some like Duel of the Planeswalker games on Xbox and other sort of scenarios like that, but predominantly Magic the Gathering has been introduced to the most players through the local game store vector. Now over time, that is most likely going to change and players will be introduced in other ways, but the majority of people are introduced through LGSs or just sitting down for a tabletop game of Magic. If we're talking of like, that is not really being that's not really part of the main discussion, because that sort of thing will exist no matter what. No matter what happens with LGSs across the board, there will still be people who will sit down and teach their friends to play. Like, hey, you know what, check out this game that I've got. But overall, the LGS was the main vector for the public to access Magic the Gathering. It's where you would go to buy your packs. It's where you would go to buy your singles. It's where you would go to play in events. For me, a lot of my Magic the Gathering playing was done at the LGS. Now, when I was a younger high school kid, we did get together at my house and play a lot too. But as the years progressed, more and more of the time I spent was, okay, it's the weekend. Friday night Magic, Saturday Magic, Sunday Magic, Monday back to the grind of working with the adult life, that sort of scenario. So for the longest time, the LGS was your magical home. But we have seen over the last number of years that LGSs are unfortunately crumbling and going out of business. Now they point at all sorts of different things. And a lot of people will just point at Wizards of the Coast and go, you're not doing enough to support LGSs. Now, after looking at everything, it appears to me that a lot of the changes that Wizards have made is based on the fact that LGSs are just naturally becoming less and less the vector for new players, for people to be getting their Magic. Now that is there's a combination sort of effect going on here, where some of the actions Wizards is taking is helping to accelerate this process. But if you look at it all underneath, I think it's only really reasonable to view it from the perspective of what's happened is this is a reaction based on how players have been acting, okay? Because Magic used to be a different thing. When we started playing, Magic was just a card game. There were nobody thought about Magic in terms of card values. Nobody traded based on numerical values, although that shifted a little bit when the Scry magazines and stuff like that started to show up. That's how old I am. I'm from before people were even really using pricing magazines. Such a hilarious way to think about things. Imagine only being able to get a price update once a month at best. That's how it was with the days of those old school magazines. I actually have piles of those magazines too that have a lot of cool snippets that we will be going through as well. I'm trying to build out my collection of those. But that's a side note. That's just cool to think about, like the old days and how ridiculous it was. But either way, when it started out, none of us really thought of it in terms of like, this card is worth X, this card is worth X, I'll trade you $4 for $4. It was just like, yo, I want your Royal Assassin, I'll give you a Shivan Dragon for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you this awesome red rare you want for that awesome black rare I want. And it was pretty much like that. You would buy your booster packs. There were some people who bought singles, but predominantly what happened was people would mainly just trade cards. That's the way it would go. Swap you this, swap you that, right? Sort of a scenario. And some people did buy singles, but again, the majority of trading was done, the majority of exchange of cards was done via trading. Now that slowly shifted over time. I remember at one point there was one guy who would come and play in drafts and things like that, and he would never want to trade. He would only ever want to buy cards. He wanted nothing to do with trading. And slowly over time, we found more and more people like that, where the people who actually want to trade cards are fewer and fewer and fewer, and the people who just want to buy cards directly, more and more and more of those. And as time progressed, you know, you would walk into a Magic shop to get involved in Magic, you'd look in the display case, and you would see all these highly valuable cards. So we shifted from people just playing a game to Magic being treated like a commodity, like a miniature stock market almost, in a way. And every card has its assigned value. You put them in sleeves to protect them as soon as they come out of packs. In some cases, it got to the point where we started double sleeving them, all that sort of thing, where we used to just play with the cards. They get beat up, whatever, who cares? It's just like any other game. Oh, well, if it gets a little play, it's just a game, who cares? But Magic shifts into this financial commodity. And that was one of the first stages to leading to the future that we're in. Because as it became more and more of a commodity, and as it became more and more about money, there was a shift in the player base towards a more greedy angle. And you don't see this with a lot of other games, but it's definitely something with Magic where people expect to be able to go out and play a night of Magic and end up with more value than they had beforehand. So to me, it's a similar concept of like, if you expected to go to the movies or something for a night of entertainment, and then instead of expecting to pay for the movie, you expected to leave the movie theater with more money in your pocket. Like, I got to watch the movie, I got my pop, I got my popcorn, and I made a profit. That's the sort of mentality that started to, it's like, I've got to make my value, I've got to get this. So stores have a hard time charging even for F&M events. Wizards send out these promos. People expect to be able to play in these events for free in a lot of cases, or they expect to pay an entry fee but be given something for that entry fee on top of entering the tournament. So we're going to charge $5 to get in, but you are getting a booster pack. And if we're going by Canadian prices, booster packs are $5. So essentially admission is just being sold a booster pack, and the store makes maybe $1 off that. So if you have 20 people coming to play in an event, you've made $20 to run that event. Now, in terms of a store running an event, 20 players, that could be a 4 or 5 hour event. That's you making $20 profit for all those people coming into your store if they're not buying other products. That is not a good profit margin. That is not good times. And so you compound this sort of scenario that's going on with this new wave of technology that allows for easier and easier purchases online. So now you have people who will go, okay, I can buy a box of my LGS for $100. I can get it on Amazon for $95 or $90 or wherever else it is. Like, I can buy it online for fewer dollars. And they choose to do that. And this, before Amazon was even a thing, people were already figuring out how to, like, I'm going to order from American sources and get a P.O. box on that side of the border and go across. Like, people would do these different things to essentially not have to purchase from the LGS. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, you can spend your money how you want to spend it. But when you compound the fact that more and more products are not being purchased directly from the LGS because it costs the player more money, so the player just goes wherever it's cheapest. So these stores don't really have the ability to sell on the same level as places like Amazon. There's always going to be a competitor who will undercut you by a couple of dollars, and the Magic players will literally go somewhere where, like, I'm not paying 102 if I can pay 100, and yet still I expect certain things from your store. I'm not going to put the money into it for you to keep your doors open. And then you have singles as well, where you can go on TCG Player, for example, and find people who are willing to undercut the price of virtually any single, right? Like, stores aren't going to be able to compete with these TCG Player prices in a lot of cases, so they're essentially forced to compete with them, right? Like, you've got no choice. These guys are going to sell them for less. So it drives the price of singles down to the point where you can't make any profit off them because these individual sellers don't have the overhead of running a shop or anything else like that, right? They're just some dude in their house. So they don't have to worry about keeping the lights on, paying for like the business registration, all that kind of stuff, right? They don't have to worry about any of that, and they can sell super cheap. And actually, on a side note, if you're somebody who doesn't have an LGS in your area, you're not trying to support an LGS, and you do like TCG Player, note that I actually have a link in my description you can use when you're buying your TCG Player stuff, and I get a cut. So if you want to support the show through purchases that you're going to make anyhow, you can do that as well, on a side note. Now, I'm much stronger for supporting LGSs, so if you can get your stuff locally at LGSs, do that. LGS has played a big role in my life. The one LGS I went to for like 26 years. I'm still going there. Actually, the gift card, this is what spurred the video right here. What I have is I have a gift card from the LGS, one of the LGSs that I go to, and it's called Phoenix Rising. And one of the awesome people who hangs out on this channel, Namius, he went ahead and, that's right, I said your name wrong. You know it. Anyways, he went ahead and took the initiative to Google search up a game store in my area, contact them, and ask them if he could get me a gift card. And I thought that was really considerate because it's a nice way to support me. At the same time, you're supporting a local game store in my area, right? So anybody else who wants to do that, feel free to contact them. The guy who runs the place, super chill. He'll happily take your money. So you got nothing to worry about that way. But anyways, that sort of thing is what spurred this conversation in the live stream earlier today. And I wanted to revisit the concept because a lot of people are pointing at Wizards and going, you're selling on Amazon, you're doing this. But in my opinion, when I look at it objectively, it looks to me like Wizards did a lot of things to try and help the LGSs as much as they could over the years with the number of promos and everything else. I think agreeing to sell through Amazon was Wizards of the Coast realizing the writing's on the wall and the players have decided we're going wherever is cheapest. Greed, unfortunately, when it comes to the Magic player base overall, now I'm not saying specifics, but when it comes to them as a whole, greed rules, right? And so as a result, the choices that are made lead to this scenario where LGSs can't pull in enough money because people don't think of LGS as like your clubhouse hangout spot. They think of it as a place to go and try and extract value in promos or whatever, grind people down for the lowest single prices, and not buy anything unless it's the absolute cheapest. But the very nature of an LGS business model doesn't allow it to be the cheapest. It's simply not possible. The LGS can't compete with the economy of scales that are involved with your Amazons and your TCG players. They don't stand a chance. So really what's going to happen, unfortunately, is most LGSs are going to crumble and fail if they're basing themselves off of Magic. And that's really sad because the majority of LGSs are actually run by people who are genuinely passionate. Every LGS in my city, and there are 3 of them, and they're all run by great people. And those people are all people that I played Magic with back in the day. So we were all Magic players coming up, and they all became adults and decided, you know what? I really want to run a game store. I really like